I thought I was just another plain girl who didn't belong in that glittering world of chandeliers and champagne flutes. But the night I walked into a ballroom with the man everyone thought was my average husband, and those women realized who he really was, I saw their smiles freeze in midair. And for the first time, I understood what power really looked like. My name's Emily Carter. I never thought of myself as special. I grew up in a small town, made my way through community college, and ended up working as a freelance designer. Nothing glamorous, just logos, flyers, the occasional website. My husband, Daniel, was the steady one. He wore the same worn-in sneakers, drove an old Toyota, and came home every night with his sleeves rolled up and his hair a little messy. We had a tiny apartment, a secondhand couch, and our big splurge was pizza on Fridays. And you know what? I loved it. I thought that was all life had to be. It all started at a coffee shop we'd been going to for years. Our spot. Same corner table, same chipped mugs, same old guy reading the newspaper by the window. That morning I was sketching out a design while Daniel flipped through the sports section when she walked in. Her name was Victoria. You could tell she didn't belong in that little shop. Her shoes alone probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. She had this perfectly controlled blonde bob nails painted the color of fresh blood, and she carried a handbag that screamed designer label. She ordered a latte with so many modifications it sounded like she was reciting a spell. And instead of sitting by herself, she floated right over to me. "Excuse me," she said with a bright smile. "Are you an artist?" I laughed nervously, tugged at my hoodie sleeve. "I'm a graphic designer." "Kind of." Daniel looked up, nodded politely. Victoria's eyes flicked over him quickly, like she'd already put him in a category ordinary forgettable. She introduced herself as the wife of some big-time executive. I didn't even catch which company. At first, she seemed genuinely interested in my sketches, asked a bunch of questions. For a second, I thought, wow, maybe she's actually nice. Then she dropped it, an invitation to a charity gala. "It's for children's literacy," she said sweetly. "You'd be perfect there. Don't worry about tickets. I have extras. I should have known." A few nights later, I walked past the same coffee shop and froze when I saw her inside with 3 other women, all carbon copies, flawless hair, dripping jewelry, laughter sharp enough to cut glass. I was about to wave when her voice carried through the window. "You should have seen her," she said, and they all leaned in, sitting there in her thrift store hoodie with her doodles. It'll be hilarious having her at the gala, like bringing a pet to show the other guests. They all erupted in laughter. One of them added, "She'll stick out like a sore thumb." Another snorted, "She probably shops clearance racks." I felt like someone had punched me. My face went hot, my throat closed, and I stumbled away before they could see me crying. When I got home, Daniel took one look at me and pulled me into his arms. "Tell me," he said softly. I choked it out, every word, every cruel laugh. Then I swore I wasn't going. "I won't be their joke," I whispered. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that didn't make sense. "What if you went and showed them exactly who you are?" I snapped back. "I am who I am. A broke designer with a closet full of Goodwill finds." He smiled, but this time it wasn't his usual smile. "Emily, I've been keeping something from you." I stared at him, my stomach dropping. "What do you mean? Are you cheating on me?" He shook his head. "I'm not an office drone. I'm Daniel Hart, CEO of Hart Technologies." I laughed in disbelief. "Stop it." But he wasn't joking. He pulled out his phone, showed me article after article. Photos of him in tailored suits, headlines about billion-dollar deals. My Daniel, my sweatpants-wearing, bus-taking husband, worth more than I could imagine. I was dizzy. "You? Why didn't you ever tell me?" Because he said simply, "I wanted you to love me, for me." Not for the headlines, not for the money, just me. And then his jaw tightened. But no one insults my wife. Not like that. The next morning, our little apartment transformed into something out of a movie. Stylists, makeup artists, racks of dresses that looked like they belonged behind glass at a museum. I protested, but Daniel just kissed my forehead. Let me show them who you've always been. When I finally stood in front of the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. Silver gown like liquid light hair curled into waves diamonds catching the glow. Daniel walked out in a tuxedo that fit him like it was sculpted on his body. For a second, my heart actually skipped. That night, a black Rolls-Royce pulled up outside our building. As the driver opened the door, Daniel took my hand. "Ready?" he asked. I wasn't ready, but I nodded. The Grand Royal Hotel looked like something out of a fairy tale. Red carpet, flashing cameras, the smell of roses and perfume thick in the air. Heads turned when we stepped out. Is that... Oh my God, it's Daniel Hart. Inside, crystal chandeliers sparkled above polished marble floors. I spotted Victoria across the ballroom glowing in crimson silk, her laughter ringing through her circle of admirers. She hadn't seen us yet. But then, whispers rippled through the crowd. Hart is here, and eyes started shifting. She finally noticed. Her gaze landed on Daniel first, then slid to me. The color drained from her face. She forced a smile, walked over like someone walking toward their own grave. "Daniel Hart," she said, voice trembling slightly. "What a surprise." Daniel's arm tightened around me. "Victoria," he said smoothly. "Have you met my wife?" Her jaw actually dropped. "Your wife." I extended my hand, smiling just enough. "So nice to see you again, Victoria. Thank you for inviting me." Her friends scrambled to cover their shock. "Emily, that dress is stunning," one gushed. Another chimed in. "You must tell us your stylist." I tilted my head. "Funny. Last week I thought my fashion sense wasn't quite up to your standards. Something about a pet at the party, silence. You could feel it crackling in the air." Victoria stammered. "That must have been a misunderstanding." I leaned in, still smiling. "No, I heard every word. And I'll tell you what, it hurt. But tonight I realized your opinion doesn't define me." Daniel's eyes never left her face as he added quietly, "I thought you were supporting a good cause. Instead, you turned kindness into cruelty. That's disappointing." Before she could answer, the host announced the auction. Daniel whispered to the organizer, and a moment later the microphone was in his hand. He spoke about respect, about kindness, about how children need to be taught more than just math. They need to learn dignity. Then he pledged $5 million. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Victoria looked like she might faint. Then it was my turn. They asked if I wanted to say a few words. My hands shook, but I said yes. "You know," I began, "we all make judgments. Clothes, cars, zip codes. But tonight I learned that none of those things tell the whole story. Every person here has worth. Every person deserves respect, whether they're in diamonds or denim." The applause washed over me like warm water. People I'd never met came up to thank me. And then Victoria herself. She pulled me aside, her perfect facade cracked. "I owe you an apology," she whispered. "What I said was cruel. I was showing off. It was wrong." I searched her face. For once, she looked human. "Thank you for saying that," I told her. "I hope you remember it the next time you want to laugh at someone." The rest of the night was a blur, people calling me inspiring, asking about my work. But all I wanted was to go home. Back in our tiny apartment, I hung up the gown and slipped into pajamas. Daniel brewed tea. We curled up on our old couch like nothing had changed. "Do you regret keeping it from me?" I asked him. "Only that it let someone make you feel small," he said. "You've always been more than enough." Lying there, I realized this whole night wasn't about revenge. It was about me finally believing that truth, that I don't need anyone else's approval to know my worth. Victoria thought she was inviting a poor girl as a joke. What she really did was remind me that real wealth has nothing to do with money. It's about love, respect, and knowing you belong exactly where you stand. And maybe that's why I didn't say yes when she texted me the next week asking for coffee. Some people never change. But me, I finally did. Now let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated, judged by your clothes, your job, your bank account? Do you think people like Victoria deserve forgiveness? Or do they need to be taught harder lessons? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if this one hit you in the gut like it did me, hit that like button and subscribe because trust me, we're just getting started.